Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's Friends in the Field episode. This month, we're talking all about anxiety, and I have a dear friend to share her story and her journey through anxiety into a place of peace and calm. Denise Sutter. Denise is a dear friend of mine who I met in Theta Healing class long ago, many years ago, and we were both on our journey of discovery. And Denise continued to study Theta Healing, and also she brought in a few other really interesting and beneficial modalities, such as Reiki. She became a Reiki master and teacher, as well as HeartPath, which is another method of helping us to go inward and connect with aspects of ourselves that we are unaware of, and to resolve hidden energies within our field. I hope I described that close enough. Denise, you can correct me if I if I got that wrong. Anyway, Denise is local here to where I live in Northern California, and she's going to share her journey with her experience in anxiety, because this month we're talking all about feelings of safety and the body's dynamic energy systems, and how we come and move from a place of feeling threatened in our world, how we can move from a place of feeling like we have no control into a place of peace and harmony, so that we can progress along our path, and so that we can experience more joy and experience more expansion of our field and of our consciousness. So I'd like to turn it over to Denise, who's going to tell you her story and share a little bit more about herself.
Thank you, Jeilene. I'm glad to be here, and I appreciate this chance to share my story. I hope that it helps others who may experience anxiety, and because it is something that can certainly make us feel like we're defined by it, but there is a way through it. And so I hope that by sharing my story, it brings others hope to be able to do that for themselves. I would say I've been a bit of an anxious person my whole life, but growing up, no one really told you about it, or, was able to help you with it. So as I grew up, just more and more experiences piled on to that anxiety, and it just built and built until I would say I was in my 30s and started experiencing panic attacks. And these panic attacks just put me in a place where I couldn't really help myself. I couldn't function. I had 3 small children. My husband was working, and I just couldn't function. And so because of that, it led me to get help for myself. I went to a doctor. I was put on anti-anxiety medications. I did receive therapy from him. So it helped me to get to a place where I could help myself more. But then a number of years went by, and I just thought, I don't want to always be on this medication. I want to be able to do this on my own somehow. And it's through that search of trying to help myself that I found Reiki and Theta Healing and HeartPath. And in doing these different healing modalities and getting my certifications to help myself, I just realized what a change it made in me. And it led me to actually open my own healing practice so that I could help others, because it just was a life changer for me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's so important, this conversation about anxiety, because it can be really debilitating. And when we were chatting beforehand, you had mentioned how a lot of times when you're in a panicked moment, when you're having a panic attack, or when you're at the height of your anxiety, you really just shut down and really hide yourself away, which can make it worse, right? Mm-hmm. So one thing that I find really interesting is that before, when you had no tools, you were really just left with medication as your possibility for getting out of a bad place. Mm-hmm. But now that you've developed these abilities and you're healing yourself and healing others, What would you say really are the tools that help you to get out of a place where you're feeling like all you want to do is isolate, and like, you can't seem to get around it? Because I think a lot of times we can say easily, oh, if you're feeling anxious, just take some deep breaths and do a meditation. But sometimes when we're so anxious, we can't even get to that place where we know how to. So would love to hear from you, like what your technique is and what has worked for you to get yourself from a place of high anxiousness into a place of calm where you can start to go out and see people again and maybe get their help and get to feel better.
Great. Well, it was definitely a long process for me, and the medication was necessary for me. I just had such extreme anxiety. So I'm glad that I had that available to me. But the Reiki, the learning to ground myself, connect with earth. I to this day, every morning I do Reiki on myself and I connect to earth. Just tools like that. I'm in nature a lot. One thing that is also helpful is taking Epsom salt baths. There's a lot of little tools like this that I still use to this day. But what really helped shift me is getting to know myself more and to really dismantle all of my limiting beliefs, because, and that's what HeartPath helped me with personally. I think there's many options available to people, but to just really see where along in my life these beliefs were formed and started building up that wall because of them. I had this scared little girl running my life, these things that happen in our experience, and instead of running my life from my adult self. And so once I did that work and really peeled back the layers and got to know myself better without these limiting beliefs, it allowed that wall to come down, and I started seeing our environment, our world, others with a different, through love and compassion instead of through fear and feeling not safe. So I think the biggest thing is really to just go in and find that place of non-judgment for yourself and love for yourself.
So do you feel your childhood set you up to be very judgmental of yourself, and that through that judgment of self that you that it kind of spurred on that anxiety?
I did. And it was just, I didn't have a traumatic childhood, but it would be things like, I remember in elementary school playing with my girlfriends, and one day they just all turned on me. And I was afraid to go to school. And then I was like, gosh, nobody loves me. Like, it's just these little things that add up. Or, I wasn't allowed to talk back to my parents, which was quite common.
Yeah.
And so it taught me, oh, I don't have anything to say. I don't want to, people don't want to hear what I have to say.
Or I don't have any power here.
Yes. So it's just little, it's normal experiences. Like I said, I didn't have a traumatic event necessarily, but it was just through life experience. And I little by little just lost my power. And so when you have no inner power, the world feels scary. Like I just would not want to go to big group functions. I would really, I'd say I wasn't feeling well and really hide myself away, but that just made it worse. Like you said in your webcast the other day that we're here to experience life, not to escape it. And that just really resonated with me, because there was a number of years where I just wanted to escape it.
Well, yeah, it's understandable. I'm so curious how Reiki, because Reiki, I think, is something that we often think of as being a more simplified energy healing modality, something that you might start with, but usually evolve into other things. But I think the simplicity of it is very beautiful, and I think it can be incredibly nurturing and healing. what do you feel like is happening in your body when you're doing Reiki? For example, if you're feeling a little anxious about something, how does that feel in your body? And then how does your body feel after you do the Reiki? Like, what do you feel like is happening?
It just takes me to a place of calmness.
Mm-hmm.
I have certain hand positions for myself that I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this blanket of warmth and calmness and safety kind of just moves through my body. I don't feel like my nervous system is on edge.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I feel grounded. I feel safe and held.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. It's so gentle and so subtle, but it's really made a difference in my life and helping. I did it, purely to help myself originally and to help my children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also interesting that your experiencing anxiety led you to all of this other work. I think there's so many different inroads to leading that more expanded and, awakened life, and that we all come in through our own doorway, and that yours happened to come in through, needing to help yourself with anxiety and other things. But it's amazing that, through that help for yourself, that it led to you doing all this other work and now helping other people. When you're, I think a big part of us living out our purpose here is to help other people. So when did you feel that shift in your body? Is another sort of curiosity about how the journey occurs for everybody. But when did you feel that shift in your body where you felt like, okay, I feel like I've healed myself to enough extent that I can turn around and help others? And or did you feel that helping others actually helped you heal even more rapidly?
I think it's a combination because while I'm at a much better place in my life and with managing my anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
there's continually healing going on with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Things still come up. It's just that I know how to handle them better and how to do my own work. I don't remember exactly when it happened. I was practicing, on family and on friends and seeing how much it helped them. And that is what led me to want to do it for others. But certainly as I work on others, it certainly helps me as well.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with Reiki, when we give energy work like that, it works through us. So we're getting our own treatment as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Definite benefit of doing Reiki.
Yeah.
And you mentioned HeartPath as well. I'm sure a lot of people aren't familiar with HeartPath because it's not as widely practiced. But I'm very curious how HeartPath really, maybe you can describe it a little bit more detail. I'm sure a lot of people are interested to understand it a bit better, and how they might, learn a little bit more about it. But how did specifically that help you? You mentioned that it helped you to release some of the limiting fears, which I know is something that we did a lot in Reiki. Sorry, not Reiki, but theta healing. But how did HeartPath help you do that?
Well, HeartPath helped me. I learned it from my teacher, Robin, who actually created HeartPath. And in HeartPath, we lead the person through a guided meditation where you go into your heart space and you bring in what's called your inner family. So you bring in your masculine self, your feminine, your inner child, your higher self, and your spirit animals. And through this work, you can see if your masculine and feminine are out of balance, and you do energetically whatever's needed to see, one may need more attention, and then you can bring in an inner child. Usually, when an aspect of yourself comes in at a certain age,
Mm-hmm.
and so you're made aware of maybe an experience you had forgotten about where this belief was formed. And through this work, I would guide the person. I love this work because the person that comes to me is actually doing the work themselves. I'm just kind of a guide.
Mm-hmm.
But you're in your heart space working with this inner child. having a conversation, letting go of this belief, healing it, and eventually merging this inner child into your current day self, so that your inner child is able to just run and free and be and play and do what your inner child is meant to do.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of different ways to work internally through this modality.
Nice. That's great. I think that all the things that you've done are really amazing, because I know that from knowing you personally, I know how much you really struggled with anxiety. And I think so many people out in the world, especially now with all of us being shut away for so much of the year, and all the precariousness about this situation, and the not knowing when we get to gather again and have life go back to normal, I think is very anxiety inducing. Was there anything this past year with COVID? How did you cope through COVID? How did you not have another event happen to you? And was there anything else that happened this year that really triggered you? And what did you do to deal with it?
Well, this year kind of, I would say, had a lot of blessings for me, because I am a bit of a homebody and more introverted, and it forced my family to be together. So I really enjoyed that time with our kids, and we had a new grandson that was born during this past year. And so it actually was really a very special time for me in that capacity.
Mm-hmm.
What I noticed, though, is as we were able to go out a little bit more, I was like, I was worried that would cause some anxiety for me to go back out into the world. And so I just allowed myself to do it little by little, and to kind of shore up on my tools a little bit more and my self-care. Did a lot of hikes and a lot of beach walks. And the most difficult part of the year was when we had to evacuate for the fires. And that really brought back that deep anxiety that I had experienced. And for a while, I was worried that it was going to spiral into panic attacks again. But then I just remembered, okay, I know how to do this. And I just turned to my tools again and moved through it, and never had a panic attack. And so it just showed me that, yes, we're human, and we're going to have these challenges that come up, but we can also move through them.
Right.
Know how to, and not be afraid of them. And I learned so much this past year, and through those evacuations especially, I learned about the strength I had and the resiliency that I had created through all these years of learning to cope with my anxiety.
That's really beautiful. That was good. You got a nice you got a nice test.
Yes, I did.
For all the work you've done.
And it showed me this past year really showed me how much others could use help. And so it's really put me in a place to want to jump back into my work more. I had taken a bit of a break just to focus on our family, but I saw how much work like yours and mine are really needed right now.
Mm-hmm. So how do you specifically work with people now? Because you have all these different tools to use, but what do you do with people in sessions?
I currently offer Reiki and HeartPath, or I do a combination of both, because sometimes, when people are in a state of anxiety, the Reiki helps them to relax and be a little more grounded in order to move into the HeartPath session. So I find that a combination is really nice. What I'd really love to do is to figure out a specific program of helping. These individual sessions are wonderful, but I'm currently working on how to help people more and do something more of a package, I guess, to help people, to just give them, solid tools instead of just to learning how to help themselves, I guess, instead of coming to me.
Yeah. And you mentioned doing Reiki on yourself, and I'm sure people are curious, like, okay, how do I do that? Because that sounds like something really easy. I can just lay hands on myself.
Yeah.
So when did you start doing that? You probably could do that right after you took Reiki 1, right?
I did. When you go through your Reiki certifications, you receive what's called attunements, and that opens you up to the energy more. And Reiki is done through your hands. But I believe we all have that ability to heal ourselves. I come from a lineage of healers who never had a formal certification, and they would just, I just grew up with, my grandmother and great grandmother laying their hands on us whenever we need
Right.
healing.
Right.
And so for me, I would just experience, play with feeling healing energy coming through your hands and wherever you put it in your body. And it just feels warm and loving and healing. And I think we all have that power to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And I've always thought that as well, that while it is wonderful to receive the attunements through Reiki courses, that we all have that ability and we can just lay hands on ourselves and also communicate with that part of the body that might be feeling out of balance. Directly communicate with that part of the body, I think, is also really important.
Yeah. The one position, so I used to do a full Reiki treatment on myself, but I found for me to put one hand on my heart and one on my sacral chakra is really powerful. And, if people would like to start there, those are two, the heart and the sacral chakra are two areas that it works really well for me to just for a general relaxing, calming treatment.
Yeah. I mean, why don't we do that right now? Just put
Okay.
a hand on the heart and the sacral and take some nice deep breaths down to your belly. You can really feel that right away. Even just the connecting to those two parts of your body in a way, acknowledging them is beneficial, I think.
You can feel it just open up to all of your other chakras and forming this beautiful column of light within your body. Then you can ask your cells to just gently open and to receive this energy, this warmth, this healing, this nurturing energy to spread throughout your body. It's there for us to tap into whenever we need to, and just by being quiet and still for a few moments. It's also helpful to bring your attention to your heart space and take a few deep breaths there and just feel it opening, expanding. And just giving gratitude to yourself for taking this time. And for just having a moment of self-love and appreciation here in your heart space. It's also helpful to just make note of how you feel, how your body feels, to really retain this as you move throughout your day and know that you can go back to this space anytime that you would like. If something comes up throughout your day, even standing in line at the grocery store or in your car driving, you can return to this place very simply by just putting your hand on your heart and one on your sacral chakra and bringing this feeling back to yourself. And as you're ready, you can just take a few more deep breaths and bring your attention back into your physical body and back into this space. And open your eyes as you're ready. And this was a great way to begin each day and also to end each day.
Thank you for doing that, especially spur of the moment like that.
Thank
Sorry, I didn't mean
you.
to
That was nice.
bring you
Feels
doing a
good.
meditation for us, but that was really beautiful. It really felt, gosh, so good in my body to just align like that to my center. Um, it's so easy to get out of alignment from
Mm-hmm.
our center and also easy to get back to it. But I think we often forget to take a moment to do something like that and
Yeah.
just bring ourselves back into that cohesion.
And it just, it is something that comes with practice. I remember um, first taking Reiki, and it took me a while to learn to really ground myself. And so I would say just be patient and just keep trying. And one day it'll come more naturally. And you can, I remember the first time, like I said, in the meditation, I was in a grocery store and just a long line and a lot going on around me. This was before COVID. And I realized suddenly that I was able to just ground myself instantly and put myself into a different space. So
Yeah, so that's a really great tool to have, I think, to use on the fly anywhere. And just to kind of recap some of the other tools you talked about were taking Epsom salt baths, right?
the
Um,
magnesium is really calming for your nervous system.
mm-hmm.
And I like to add to it with candlelight or crystals, whatever, or read in the bath, whatever feels relaxing to you.
Right. And I know that you also use essential oils quite a bit.
I
So
do.
that's another way, yeah, to use scent to help you relax. What are some of the other things you mentioned that you do?
I would say the biggest thing for me is really connecting with nature and hikes. I can go on a hike and have I call it an attitude adjustment. So just going in nature and really connecting with earth and all around us, it just brings me to a place of being grounded and feeling safe. And I would say for me, creativity has been a really great tool. So, like coloring or doing puzzles is very meditative for me to do those things. So, I would explore your creative side and see how that feels. And rest. Just when you need rest, just take the time for yourself to have a little rest. I think that's the biggest thing that's helped
Yeah,
me,
that's
is to
good.
allow myself to be still and to just stop, which I think a lot of us have really learned this past year to go back to that.
Especially as a mom, I think often we think there must be something I'm supposed to be doing.
Yes.
I can't just sit here and do nothing. That's not okay.
Yeah.
Right. But you're right, just checking out for a little while and resting, closing
Mhm.
your eyes, going
Yeah.
inward.
I do what we just did in the afternoon, especially when the kids were a little smaller and in school. It was kind of like a regroup for me in the afternoons before they
Hmm.
would get home, and we'd have to get dinner ready and that kind of stuff. So
Hmm. It's better than a glass of wine, I think.
yes, that did not help the anxiety.
No, alcohol usually does not help
No,
anxiety.
I think a lot of people, for me included, it seemed to help, but it was very temporary. So
Right.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I find also that alcohol can really kind of strip you. I think something happens in the gut with the alcohol that the microbes don't like it because
Mhm.
when they're, the ones producing the serotonin and the dopamine, and then the next day, I think you have like a little bit of a dip in the production of those things because the microbes aren't very happy. And so, you're not feeding them what they like to
Yeah.
really thrive and create the happy hormones and
Yeah.
neurotransmitters. So yeah, I think you don't do yourself much of a favor there.
Yeah.
You got to be in a really good place to have a glass of wine.
Yeah. And keep it to one or two.
That's right, not in a stress place. Exactly. Everything in moderation, right?
Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
Okay. Is there anything else you want to share with our group? This has been so wonderful for you to share your experiences. We really appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to share with us about people who are experiencing anxiety or perhaps OCD or things like that that help them feel or cause them to feel helpless and cause them to feel like, they don't have the tools they need to get out of that place?
I would just, I really just send a lot of love and compassion to anyone who does experience this. And, to know that, to not let yourself be labeled by that anxiety or OCD, it helped me to just look at it more like, I just am very more of a sensitive person. And so it took that label off of me and made me help me to understand myself better
Mm-hmm.
in order to help myself. But I would say the biggest thing is there is help out for you out there, and that you're not alone,
Mm-hmm.
that we all have this human anxiety that pops up. Some is more extreme than others, but there's help for all of us.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, there's been a lot going on this year,
Mhm. Yeah.
So there's a lot of things to induce that. And there's a lot of things we can do, though, to mitigate it and to help us. So really
Mhm.
appreciate you sharing that with us. And I also think it's really important for people to understand, because you had been told by your doctor that you were going to be on medication for your entire life. And
Mhm.
you successfully shifted that and were able to not use medication and to use your
Mhm.
tools instead. And I think that's a really wonderful thing, and also took a lot of courage on your part, probably, to stop using the medication when you're really suffering from pretty intense anxiety. So
Yeah.
really celebrate that you were able to do that, and it took a lot of courage. So, but I bring that up. Whether or not you're using medication is really a personal choice, and sometimes we need some help outside of ourselves to get to a place where we feel even enough to even implement tools such as the ones
Mhm.
you've talked about today. But it's nice to know also that you have this experience of moving through that place from that only Western medicine option into all these other options that are still helping you in an ongoing way.
Mhm. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. So thanks so much, Denise, for joining us today. And thanks for doing your healing out there in the world. And if you want to get in touch with Denise, how should people get in touch with you for Reiki? Because you're doing distance Reiki,
I
right?
can do
And
both HeartPath and Reiki remotely.
mm-hmm.
And I have a website you can visit. It's spiritheartmind.com.
Okay, Spirit, Heart, Mind. Is that all one word?
It is.
Okay.
And you can reach me through there, or my email is edenisesutter@gmail.com.
Okay.
If you'd
Pretty
like to
easy.
reach out.
All right. And I can put that in the show notes as well. All
Okay.
right, dear.
Thank
Wonderful.
you for having me. I enjoyed it and appreciate you letting me share my story.
Yeah. Thanks for talking with our group today.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.